Hello and welcome to another edition of Reminiscences. Today our guest is Chief Samuel Oluyemisi Falae, actually better known simply as Chief Olu Falae. He was, as many of you know, a federal permanent secretary, a former managing director of Nigerian Merchant Bank, before he returned to the civil service as secretary to the government of the Federation under General Babangida, and later Minister of Finance. He had his own career in politics and contested for the presidency twice. I'm in his home now in Lagos, and Chief, I want to welcome you to Reminiscences.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to start with the curious fact that born in Akure, you somehow after primary school came all the way to Lagos for your secondary school education. How did that come about?
Well, thank you very much indeed. It was rather interesting how I came to attend the Gobi College in Lagos. Of course, the Gobi College was very popular in the Western region in those days, because every year it did extremely well in the Western African School Certificate. It became very popular, and I was going to take the entrance examination to that school. But one of my elder cousins said, "Olu, don't waste your money. Since 1932, when the Gobi College started, it has never admitted any person from Akure, our hometown. So they won't take you. Don't waste your money." And that challenged me. And I decided to take the entrance exam to Gobi to demonstrate to my cousin that I would do what nobody else had done in Akure up to that point. So, in a very defiant mood, I took the entrance examination. I passed the examination, I was admitted.
Yes, after Igbobi,
Yes.
unlike many of your contemporaries of that era, you didn't seek the golden fleece outside. You went to the University of Ibadan. Again, was that a deliberate choice, or is lack of opportunity to go abroad?
Again, that's the story behind it. Our focus was on going to the higher school certificate course, which was then just coming into Nigeria. So, Igobi College didn't have an HSC course when I left school in 1957, but King's College did have. So, and I and 9 others from Igobi College who were selected by the school authorities to the entrance to King's College. Unfortunately, the examination leaked and results were cancelled. So, Reverend Parker gave me a note to Government College Ibadan to go and attend the HSC course in Government College. So, from HSC, you went straight to university. Yes, some were going abroad to study abroad. But I myself wanted to go to read law and economics, a special combined course, in St. Andrews University in Scotland.
Scotland.
Yes, I got admission, but they wanted the Western Regional Government to give some documentation, which I never got. And so when the admission to University College Ibadan came, I went to University College Ibadan, hoping that the document would still come and I would withdraw and go to Scotland. But for a whole term, I didn't get it. So thereafter, I decided to stay at Ibadan to read economics.
Again, unlike many young people, young graduates in that era from the southwest here, you went to the public service rather than the private sector, which was opening up.
Yes, that's true. In my case, it was quite deliberate or almost mandatory. I will explain. I got a federal scholarship as an undergraduate. And the federal government said we must work in the public service. Although I tried to take a job elsewhere, but they wrote me a letter and said you must come and work in the civil service. So I had to leave Ibadan and come to Lagos. Very reluctantly. But in retrospect, I'm happy that I came to Lagos because I was able to actualize a lot of my dreams in the federal civil service. By the grace of God, I was one of the youngest federal permanent secretaries ever appointed. Before I was 38 years old.
38?
Before, yes, I was 38 plus when I became a federal permanent secretary.
30?
38.
38.
Plus. Very, very unusual. So, all in all, I thank God I accepted the invitation, came to the federal civil service, and I liked what I was doing because it was quasi-academic in the planning ministry. Because it wasn't just routine. Of course, there was some routine, but planning was essentially looking forward to the future, making projections of the various macroeconomic aggregates, and forecasting foreign exchange earnings, surpluses, and then helping to articulate projects, to evaluate projects both for federal government and for the state government. In fact, that gave me a tremendous insight into Nigeria. When I became director for economic planning, I had to visit every state to discuss their various projects with them in detail. And at the implementation stage, I had to travel around the country to physically see those projects and write reports on them. That was perhaps the foundation for my political ambition. I haven't seen Nigeria, I haven't seen the potentials. I felt I, with others, could do something to translate the potentials into development, into income, into opportunity for many. So all in all, my coming to the civil service was a blessing in disguise.
It seems you retired fairly early from PAMSEC. After being PAMSEC,
yes,
you retired from the civil service.
Yes.
Why so early?
Well, thank you very much. In those days, it was government policy that if you had done 21 years of service, 21, you could retire, but you not draw pension until you are 45. So, I became permanent secretary at 38. Grade level 17, step 1. At 39, I was on step 2. Then step 3, step 4, step 5.
So were you offered the banking job before you retired, so that kind of motivated you to...
Yes. When I heard that there was a vacancy in the Nigeria Merchant Bank, I got interested. And I then spoke to my friend and colleague, Alhaji Abubakar Alhaji, who was then permanent secretary of finance. When I mentioned to him, I said, oh, he was excited. He said, you're interested? I said, yes. He said, very good. He said, as I knew, the federal government had 60% equity in the bank, UBA 40%. And that the agreement with UBA was that the federal government will always nominate the managing director and UBA the deputy. That therefore, we would tell Shagari that I was interested. So when I told Shagari, Shagari told him to ask me to come and see him. So I want to see President Shagari. He said, is it true you want to retire and go into the bank? I said, yes, sir. He said, why? I said, but you have said that it should be the bridge between the public service and the private sector. I said, someone like me going from the public service to the private sector will be a very credible bridge. He said, that's all right. He said, because I wanted to be sure that I was not being edged out. He said, one of his friends who left the regular service to head the parastatal was removed by one of his ministers without consulting him. And it was too late before he had, so he didn't want this to happen to me. I said, no. It was my own decision to go. He said, it's fine. That's how I got appointed as managing director of Nigeria.
It's curious you mentioned Alhaji because in a recent interview, he said something which I'm sure made you unhappy from what I've seen in the paper. Is there any bad blood between the two of you? Is this something that was there during your days in the service? Because he seemed to have made an uncomplimentary remark.
We were very good friends. And when I came back to the public service after I'd been managing director for 5 years, it was one of those who made it very easy for me to key in, to come back and I had no re-entry problems. Thanks largely to his being my friend and being there. Because at some point, the then head of service thought he should have been made secretary to the government along with the post of head of service. But Babangida had decided weeks before he appointed me that he was separating the post of head of service from that of the secretary. I had no hand in it. So Alhaji was very helpful at the initial stage. And we remained friends throughout. Even when I was a high commissioner in London, I visited him in London. So when I saw his remark about me, I was shocked. Then I was sad because I thought to myself, Alhaji will not say anything negative about me if he was lucid, if he was not beginning to forget and confuse events of the past. Because what he said never happened, could never have happened. I'm happy that General Babangida is still alive, very much so, and he was astounded when he became aware of what he said. And I've made a statement that what Alhaji said was pure fiction. A story without any speck of truth in it. That I was never sacked from any position by anybody at any time. Either when I was in the civil service, or when I was in the banking industry, or when I came back into public life as secretary of the government. That I resigned voluntarily for a purpose, to go into politics, that it was public record. When I resigned, it was carried by the papers, radio, television, the whole nation heard about it. I wrote a letter in time, a resignation to the president. He responded and thanked me for my service and wished me well in my new ventures.
So let me. I mean, it's a bit surprising. You left the civil service. You went to the bank, yet you are called at a more senior level, as secretary to the government of the federation. Were you surprised? I mean, why did Babangida really go outside the civil service to do?
Thank you very much. I did not expect the invitation. First, I knew General Babangida from a distance before I retired from the service. We were not close, we were not friends. He sent someone, an emissary to me, one of his aides, whom I knew well.
Who?
One of his aides.
Okay, yes.
To me in the bank to say,
yes,
the president has asked me to offer to you the post of secretary to the government of Nigeria. He said, you must be joking. I said, no, I'm not joking.
So you said, are you joking?
Yes, are you joking? He said, it's not joking. I said, well, thank you very much. Let me thank him. But the answer is no. That I've already said good night before leaving the civil service. I'm not going to come back and say good evening. So, secondly, I like what I'm doing here.
The bank?
The bank, yes. Because I could see the outcome of my efforts. In the civil service, I was just part of a number. In the bank, I have a balance sheet. My bank was stagnating on a plateau when I took over. In the very first year, by the grace of God, I doubled its profit. And every year, I doubled my profit. So I was very happy. Seeing the fruits of my labor and I have the fastest growing bank in my time. That was very rewarding, spiritually and otherwise. So I didn't want to leave out. And then also, I was free to choose what I did. As a permanent secretary or secretary of the government, you could plan something for the day, and the call will come from Jordan Barracks to change your program completely. And you could summon to Jordan Barracks from 10 o'clock until 8 p.m. So you did not control your own agenda. But in the bank, I was the chief executive. I chose what I did, when I would do it. For the first time in my career, I was going home for lunch. Of course, the downside was I started putting on weight. And my wife started to complain. But seriously, I didn't want the job at all. But you know, Babangida was very persistent. So after consultation, some senior friends said, look, it's a privilege to be asked to come and be secretary. You cannot turn it down. He said, if your intention is to come back to the banking industry after that, then you can, since they are very keen on having you, then go on secondment. Let them, since they have 60% equity in the bank, let them arrange for the bank to second you. You remain the MD of the bank. You'll be working for free for the government, as secretary of the government. And your bank will pay you, you will not take one kobo from the government. So that's what I did.
So, sir, as secretary to the government, and later as finance minister, as you just said, and Babangida said, you played a very crucial role in shaping the economic direction of the country, especially on the big issue of SAP, Secretary Adjournment Program. Many people still see you
as Mr. SAP.
As the main architect. Why did we need SAP at that period?
Okay. Before I answer that question, I will address the misperception, general misperception, that I was the architect of SAP. No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I'm not saying so because I want to, for any personal reason. I'm saying so because it is the fact. The fact was that there was a national debate on the IMF loan. You remember? Babangida said, let Nigerians debate it. And they went on and on and on. Until, I think, from December 15, 1985, when he made the broadcast and said, okay, that had enough, that Nigeria will not take the IMF loan because of the conditionalities, but Nigeria will take his own homegrown adjustment program, made by ourselves, imposed on ourselves to get the right result. It will not be imposed on us by foreigners. We made that broadcast on the 18th of December 1985, when I was still the managing director of Nigeria Merchant Bank. I was not appointed secretary to the government until the end of January 1986. 6 weeks after the government had announced publicly that it had adopted its own homegrown structural adjustment program. That is the fact. However, as a professional economist and banker, I understood the rationale for SAP. It was to make us self-reliant and make us less dependent on foreign imports, especially of non-essentials, food, water, alcohol, etc. So, and the government always called upon me to explain the rationale to the public. So at the end of every cabinet meeting, I will be the one sitting down there, facing the cameras, and feeding the questions, answering the questions, explaining what we were doing and why we were doing it. And so people said, aha, here is Mr. SAP. So SAP had one of its major objectives, the diversification of the economy, particularly on the export sector. And also, it brought an end what I can call the bureaucratic control of the economy. We had parastatals like the marketing board, which decided the price to pay to farmers for the groundnut, cotton, cocoa, palm oil. And most of the marketing board destroyed the production of those crops because they did not pay the farmers prices that were remunerative enough to encourage them to continue production. So, for example, if you take cocoa, at the height of cocoa production in Western Nigeria, we are producing 240,000 tons of cocoa per annum. By 1986-87, when SAP came, we were producing only 40,000 tons, 1/6 of what we used to produce. What happened? The marketing boards regularly underpaid the farmers, and they built up huge reserves. They are allowed by law to build up reserves by paying less than market price to the farmer. But the objective of building the reserve was to enable the marketing board show up prices in bad years.
Yes.
They never did. They never did that. Every year they shortchanged the farmer, beat up his reserves. Of course, in the case of Western region, the government, quote unquote, borrowed the money from the marketing board to finance the various developmental projects of Western Nigeria. That was good, but the farmer should not be the only person to bear the burden for development. So it was unfair. So the social adjustment program, therefore, had one of its objectives, the elimination of the marketing board structure.
But sir, let me still say the opponents of SAP.
Yes.
I mean, there is the good part of it, like you said, in terms of self-reliance and encouraging free economy.
Yes.
But then the withdrawal of support or subsidies, if you want to call it that, to education, to social welfare, led to serious disruption in those areas. For a developing country that needed to still build up its own social capital.
I agree 100% with you. The withdrawal of subsidy, especially from those important areas, was never a critical objective of SAP. Yes, the IMF, the World Bank will come to us here and say we must reduce subsidy. And I used to tell them that you work for the IMF or the World Bank, and you live in Washington, D.C. I said if the American government were to withdraw subsidy from the production of food in America, you would hardly be able to feed yourself. That by virtue of PL 482, Public Law 480, the American government subsidizes farmers to the extent of 40%. How can you ask us in Nigeria not to subsidize the farmers? I never agreed with the plea that we should remove subsidy. Gradual phasing out, yes. Immediate phase out, not from education, not from health. It can be from things like maybe petroleum. I've always had the view that if we adopt my own pricing mechanism for petrol, we find that there's no subsidy. My pricing proposal is based on the assumption that we will develop the capacity to make our refineries work. Why can't we manage refineries? People like us run other countries in the world. Why can't we run refineries? If the refineries work, then I will insist that the price to be paid for petrol should be derived from the production cost of crude oil in Nigeria, plus the manufacturer's cost, plus what is called the normal profit in that industry. Those three components will determine the price you pay at the point. Now, if we do it that way, the price will be far less than what we are paying today. What we are paying today is based on international price of crude. It assumes your crude oil is taken to New York, you ship it to New York, they refine it, you ship it back. Then sell it, we say there's subsidy. But you must insist, if your refineries work, subsidies will disappear.
Will you accept some responsibility, you and the leading lights of that period, like Alhaji?
Yes.
Will you accept responsibility for the choices Nigeria made, which has put us really in a very bad shape now as an economy?
Such as?
The choices made, for example, to devalue the currency, the beginning of devaluation. Many people see it that was the beginning, and it has gone downhill since then to where we are now.
I'm very happy you raised this matter. After 3 years of the structural adjustment program, from 1987 to 1990, when I left off, the adjusted value of the naira was 5 naira 50 to the American dollar. The day I left office, 20th of August 1990, it was 5 naira 50 kobo, not 55, to the dollar. I'm sorry, mismanagement followed thereafter. I can't explain or justify what happened. 5 naira 50 kobo was the market value of the dollar here. And even at that time, I was advocating that we should adopt the PPP method of valuing our currency. It's called purchasing power parity. That if we did that, in fact, it would be better than 5 naira 50. I was still arguing that. As I said, I left office on the 20th of August 1990. It was 5 naira 50 to the dollar. 6 months later, it had gone to 22. And 84 and 100 and 200. Because I left office, I won't know the details of why things went the way they did. Yes, as public officers, I will accept responsibility for any mistake I might have made in office. But I don't think it was a mistake to encourage the Nigerian public to move into an economic arrangement where they can exercise their freedom of choice, where a parastatal like the market will not impose prices on them, will not deny them vital, for example, in one particular year. The marketing board failed to import enough jute bags from India to enable the farmer to bag their produce and sell it. And for that reason, for 2 months, they could not sell their produce. And I suffered. I went home to Akure for my school fees. My father could not give it to me. He had the cocoa dry, but there was no bag, thanks to the incompetence of the marketing.
You tried to be president twice. Tell us that story. The first time, the process was scuttled by General Babangida. What happened?
Well, I cannot pretend to know what happened. It was a very exciting time. There were 12, I think, SDP aspirants. There were 13 NRC. And I was running around the whole country trying to sell myself. And I believe the government started to change its mind about leaving office and how to find excuses for stalling the transition. Because they said we were rigging the primaries. So it was direct primary.
Yes, option A4.
Option A4. At one stage, in the SDP to which I belonged at the time, out of 12 people, 11 of us withdrew. Because one of us, General Shehu Yaradua, was the only one who contested in 10 states because he was using his position to manipulate the results. So the remaining 11 refused to participate. But the government said that the outcome was rigged. And they said it meant it was he who was rigging. If we didn't participate, and there was still rigging. And yet all of us were disqualified. I believe it was because the government was changing its mind. And so we were disqualified. Later, after the Abiola episode, I was detained for 2 years for being part of NADECO, insisting that the democratic choice must be respected. That if government didn't want a particular person to be president, we should disqualify him before the election. But once we had elected him, if you disqualify him, it is we the voters who are taking on. No longer that candidate. That was my position. General Abacha was surprised that I was part of the movement. He considered me a friend, a colleague, we worked together. But I sent messages to him that it was not he I was calling away. It was his decision. Unfortunately, he could not quite separate himself from his actions. And so I was detained for 2 years. I came out after he died, and I then participated in the 1999 presidential election.
So that one seems to have started with the controversy in the southwest here of the choice between you and Chief Bolaige. How did it happen that you beat him to the ticket of the Alliance for Democracy?
Thank you very much. Now, you remember that Chief Bolaige did not participate in the transition from 1990 until 1998. He said he has taken the position of Sidon de look.
Sidon look.
Sidon look. He did not participate. But I was there with Shehu Yaradua, mobilizing the party, running over the country, bidding offices. By the time he decided to participate in 1998 in the SDP, I was far better known. I had won elections in the north, in the east, in Kaduna State. So he was the one was not as well known in the party circles as I was. 2, he had no following. I had built up my national following. I had to do Falae campaign committees in all the states of Nigeria. I had offices in all the, I had bosses. So nobody, well, they heard his name, but was not part of that current movement. That's number 1. Number 2, I believe he had done things in his political past which affected the attitude of a number of leaders in the Southwest. What happened was that Afenifere set up a committee of, I think, 23 people to serve as an electoral college to choose between me and Babangida. What I did was to visit each and every one of those 23, to have a one-on-one with him, to try to persuade him that I would be a better candidate for president than Babangida. That yes, was been in politics for a long time. But that in the last 10, 15 years, military government has been the political machine of Nigeria. And I've been in the very center and core of that government. I've been there when most of the important decisions about Nigeria were discussed and decided. That therefore, I too have had a very relevant and adequate political education. I was not a neophyte in politics. And so I did this. I went around each and every one of them. Even I went to those whom I knew would never vote for me, who were close to Babangida. I still went to them. And it appeared I was able to persuade 14 out of the 23 to vote for me. One of Babangida's personal friends from Kogi State, I went to see him in his village. I said to him, I know you are Babangid's friend. I know when you are coming to Lagos for any affair for him, you usually spend the night with him in Ibadan before coming with him to Lagos for the meeting. I know as much as that. I know that when he was governor of the West, based on the UPM policy, he made you a director of one of the prosecutors in the West. So I know all this, and yet I've come to see you to ask you to do 2 things: keep Babangida as your friend, but make me your presidential candidate. I said, because what is important is winning the election. I said, I know that either Babangida or I will win hands down in the West. I said, but whom do you think will win outside the West? I said to you. So Babangida said things that displease people in the North and call them names, and so they will not vote for him. So meaning that I have a better chance of winning a national. He said, yes, we do. So therefore, support me.
Were you surprised you lost? You lost to Chief Obasanjo in the election, in the 1990 election?
Oh, yes. I didn't lose. I won the election.
What happened?
No. The military felt safer in the hands of a fellow military man as their successor. Yes, I worked with him. They knew what I could do. They knew my integrity. But I was not a soldier. One of them said later that you could trust a sergeant more than a graduate. So, before the election, the government was already giving the presidential plane to him to go around Africa. I saw that. He showed their preference. But I won the election. I told Obasanjo once, I said, I won that election. Yes. I won the election. Because I'm sure at that time, all over Nigeria, it was no more soldier. No more soldier. I was able to sell that point of view, that it was time for real change in Nigeria. So, but when the results came, it was very funny. I give you an illustration, and no more. Imo State had 22 local governments. The results for the first 18 came out. I won in every one of the 18. Ratio of 4-1, 3-1, not close. I was sure I had won Imo State. I went to bed. Results from the remaining 4 local governments came out over when I was asleep and completely overturned the results I had in 18 local governments. It was very clear that they gave it to us. There's no argument about that. But they thought that was the best thing for them to do. Maybe they thought as a civilian, I will go after them. But I've told them, I made it plain that I was with the military. I said, it would be stupid of me to undermine a government of which I was a part. That'd be suicidal. And that in any case, I said it publicly, that my mandate will start the day of my inauguration, not the day before. And that there will be no problems for me to tackle from that moment until the end of my tenure. That there will be no incentive there to go back to the past, to go and dig up problems, to complicate life for me. I was saying to them, I will not go after you. I will be dealing with current and future problems of Nigeria. Maybe they didn't believe that.
Now another election is coming, and you're an elder now in the Southwest. And it seems you have to take part in settling the gathering storm.
I have retired from politics. But I'm the first Nigerian to hold a press conference and not resign and retire.
Yes.
From partisan politics.
But given your deep insight into what is going on and experience,
yes,
don't you see a problem coming to the Southwest in terms of choice of the next candidate in the APC?
Well, the APC is not the only party in the country.
But it's the main one, and it looks like the ticket looks like the ticket is coming to the South and probably to the Southwest.
Well, thank you very much. Only one aspirant has said to me that he wants to be president. Nobody else has told me the same thing. So maybe others would do so. And at that point, one may have to join others to mediate the emergence of credible candidates for Nigerians to choose one. The Southwest cannot choose a candidate, a president for Nigeria.
Yes.
You can narrow the choice, but ultimately all of us together must elect a president. So only one person has spoken to me so far.
What do you think are the chances of that one declared candidate?
Well, my assessment is that I don't know what the attitude will be in the East or in the North. But here, I would say it's a 50-50 chance. Because everybody has a past. That's my assessment. It's a 50-50 chance.
Who has the other 50?
Nigerians.
No.
The candidate 50%, the voters 50%.
So you have been very critical of the structure of Nigeria, the arrangement. What ideally do you want to see?
My own view is that by far the better of the two systems that we have is the parliamentary format. Why? Because it is far cheaper to run. If you want to be president of Nigeria under that system, all you need to do is to win the election to the National Assembly in your home constituency. And if your party then has the majority in the National Assembly and you happen to be the leader of that party, you will become president. You don't have to go and look for 50 billion naira to buy voters and no. Secondly, it's collegiate by its very nature. The president or prime minister is a member of the House of Representatives. He chooses all his ministers from members of the House of Representatives. So they are colleagues. But we call him primus inter pares, first among equals. They are equal members of the House of Reps, but he's the boss, he's number one among his equals. The advantage of that is this: on a daily basis, the legislators can interact with him and exchange views with him and develop positions with him. In this system, the man is sitting somewhere, maybe for 3 months, you don't even know where he is. The kind of continuing dialogue which we need to resolve the problems of Nigeria are not encouraged under this present system. So, and also, given the very heterogeneous nature of our country, multilingual, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural, we need a system that forces the ruler to seek the support of others. Once we elect a president, they can virtually do what he likes. But prime minister, if he does not do something that the House supports, they can vote him out of office. So he is forced by the very nature of his election to seek consensus. To me, these are very powerful reasons why we should go for the parliamentary system. And also, it engenders a learning process. Young people, parliamentarians, they can learn, and they can be parliamentary under secretary, parliament, and gradually they become ministers, and there's training embedded in it. In this system, you can just come from nowhere with plenty of money in your pocket. Like one young man came to my house 5 years ago. He said, "I want to be your governor." He didn't find me, so he left a note. He said, "Call me back, I want to be your governor." Presumably, I should be happy that he wants to be my governor. And who is this boy? He's never done anything in his life, but because he has money in his pocket, he says he can buy the government. These are the abuses which have culminated in what we are battling with today.
But Nigerians have sat down. Indeed, you were a prominent member of the 2014 conference under Jonathan. They have sat down to review the structure of the country, yet they have still come back with a position which more or less continues with the presidential system, with the present structure as it is.
Not completely. You were there, I was there.
Yes.
And we were on the political committee as well.
Yes.
In fact, in some of the discussions, we went as far as saying that yes, now let me tell you something. In the unofficial consultations, which we had most nights, I asked some of my friends from the north and elsewhere who are opposing parliamentary government. I said, "Why are you opposing parliament?" They said, "Well, you, through Obasanjo, you have used, that's the Yoruba people, you have used the presidential system to your advantage for 8 years. I won't comment on that. We too must use it for the same number of years. Then after that, we will agree with you to do the most sensible thing, which is parliamentary government." Most Nigerians support parliamentary, but for this kind of political consideration.
Finally, let me ask you, despite all the problems we have in the country, and there are many, do you feel optimistic about the future of Nigeria?
Thank
As
you
it
very
is.
much. I'm a chronic optimist. I'm encouraged by what I know about Nigeria. Its resources, inanimate and human resources. And what I have known throughout my career about the journeys of most Nigerians, regardless of where they come from. We basically want the same things. But you see, partisan politics and ethnic jingoism has poisoned the environment. But when we were at the national conference, we had what we call bridge meetings at night, where, to my surprise and joy, most of us agree with the same thing. That was why we were able to get many things through that conference. For these reasons, I'm optimistic that Nigeria as a country will survive and develop, and we will have peace, because there are so many factors that mandate success in Nigeria. We have made a terrible mistake in choosing leaders.
Mm.
But if you get it right,
Mm.
I get a man who will listen to others,
Mm.
who knows that he's not the only one in Nigeria,
Mm.
and that people from other parts of Nigeria have as much right as himself
Mm.
to be where he is.
Mm.
That's what we need in Nigeria.
Mm.
People to feel that they are recognized as legitimate citizens of Nigeria, entitled to all the good things of Nigeria. The same in the UK. Who cares where the Prime Minister comes from? Gordon Brown, Scottish now, Prime Minister.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. Similarly, if government does what it's supposed to do, if our president of Nigeria, I don't think Nigerians will bother where I come from. Because I've been a public officer, and by the grace of God, I've been able to navigate my career successfully. Even at very sensitive times when I was in government. With that type of experience, we'll be able to let Nigerians know that they matter and that everybody is entitled to government attention. So I believe we have enough people in Nigeria who can govern this country and enjoy the support of most Nigerians. That is the hope we have.
Yeah.
And we have the resource base. If we're a basket case of no resources, where rain does not fall for 5 years at a time, we cannot be talking about the future. But we can and we should. But if God will enable us to pick governments at all levels who will make the welfare of the ordinary person their primary business.
Thank you, Chief Olu Falae, for this engaging conversation. And thank you, viewers, for joining us in this special episode from Lagos with Chief Olu Falae, who, as you have heard, has traversed many areas of Nigerian life and is still, even though retired, is still clearly engaged and involved in the Nigerian affairs. Thank you and see you another time.